Hello, everyone, and welcome to Megahaulin, a podcast based on the Wise Wizard game Star Realms. My name is Dustin, and I am your host. Folks, this is episode 119, recorded on February 10th. Each and every time on Megahaulin, I'm joined by my incredible co-host, Rick Darklighter DeMille. Hey, Rick, welcome back to the cast. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Nice, sunny, warm, 40-degree weather here in Chicago.
Imagine that. Imagine what the difference of one cast makes when it comes to your day-to-day weather.
I know. It was so cold last time.
You know that down in the South, the Banana Ball tour has started. The Savannah Bananas, I think, are into their third game already. Are you familiar at all with the Savannah Bananas?
I am. Yeah. The guy that bats a while on stilts and all the weird stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. They have one really awesome rule. If you brought your glove and you catch a ball, any foul ball that goes into the stands and the fans catch it is an out.
Looks fun. They look fun. Look like fun games.
They're getting 10,000 people to come out. And as somebody who not so long ago lived in Florida and went to Rays games, the Rays have a hard time getting that many to come out to see a game. And in Tropicana Field, so it's nice to see that this little remix has brought out some of the energy in both families and baseball fans all over.
Speaking of sports, though, what's the hype out there for Super Bowl?
Well, again, I have to clarify. Despite the fact living in San Francisco, and I will be watching the game, they are the Santa Clara 49ers.
Oh, that's right.
They are 30 miles away from us.
That's right.
But yes, everyone's excited about it. The game against the Lions was quite an interesting turn of events. If you're a Detroit fan, you might say that the real Lions finally showed up in that game and just let it get away. They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Yeah. I was bummed for the Lions. It's been a while. They're kind of due, but at the same time, hey, we'll take it. So yes, so tomorrow we will be celebrating an unofficial national holiday of consumption and be watching the Super Bowl.
Yep.
We got a lot of great feedback from the last cast, Rick. A lot of folks really felt that we dialed it in on Corey Bear's article, that 1 of N regression analysis. Triggered a lot of really great conversation.
Yeah.
But the thing that people loved even more than our review of that article, Rick, was the section about Rick facts. And we got a bunch of Rick fact questions. So It's my job to kind of pose some Rick facts.
Okay.
In fairness, some of these actually got posed to both of us, so we can both take a swing at them.
Yes.
But so let's see. Where are we here? Oh, yes. Marauder Mo says, "This may be dreaming, but..." Well, this is not a question. This is a statement, but I like where he's going. "This may be dreaming, but maybe someday you can go full Madden mode and analyze board states like Sparks and Rex does. What would you do?" Segments. I would love that. I would love it if we could do that. Especially if we could have some kind of cheat codes that will let us create a board state so we could talk about a specific situation as opposed to just hoping that it happens in a game. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, they do that on the Hero Realms podcast, and it's really interesting. They have it on Discord, and so people can comment with pictures and everything. And then the next cast, they'll talk about it. They'll share what other people said, and then they'll say what they would do. Yeah. But it's really cool. When I was streaming on Twitch, I tried this and I think a lot of people liked it, but I had people send me in videos of their games and then I would kind of react to the game.
Right.
And I can pause it, because it's a recording. The problem was the quality wasn't good. And I didn't have enough time to deal with, getting people to send me high quality videos. So some of the times on the Twitch stream, you could barely even see what they were buying. There's a lot of interest in seeing actual game states and commenting and reacting to kind of what would you do. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, maybe we can take that under advisement and try that. The challenge with doing it with a video is you come to these key decision points and then you see what happened in that person's game, but you wouldn't be able to represent why a different choice might have paid the dividends, right? You can't follow it all the way through its logical completion. Whereas if you were able to establish the board state through a game configuration, we could set up the deck. We could know both cards and both decks to date. We could set it up essentially and try to play it out as another version of that game with different choices at key points. The game's just not designed to do that. I would expect that they have some type of control that they are able to use on the back end. But whether or not they're ever going to let us have something like that is questionable. We'll take it under advice, Marauder Mo. He asks actually another question, a non-Star Realms related icebreaker question for you guys. So this is for both of us.
Okay.
So we've both talked a little bit about how we're playing Marvel Snap.
Yes.
And maybe a brief word on what is your favorite deck to play. Maybe because it has a cool variant or wins a lot or is challenging but satisfying, that kind of a thing. So what type of Marvel Snap decks are you enjoying to play these days, Rick?
So I'll share two. My most successful and my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite deck to play isn't the one I win the most, but it's the one that generates the most of my opponents withdrawing because they just hate playing against it. And that's basically a deck that just involves manipulating my opponent's deck, right? Or their side of the game board. So you've got like Iceman, who increases the cost of one of their cards. You've got Scorpion, which reduces the power of all the cards in their hand. Shang-Chi, which can destroy a bunch of cards that are high cost. Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, which both are negative points but fly onto the other side. So it's just a bunch of that stuff. And it's probably it's better than 50% win rate, but I just think it's a lot of fun to play with. And my opponents often will quit halfway through.
Yeah, you're that guy. You've got Debris, you've got Korg or Rock Slide, those guys in there as well.
Actually, I don't have any of those. I have a separate one which uses all those. And you throw in what's Darkhawk in there because you fill up their deck with rocks, and then you have Darkhawk, which gets power for how big their deck is. The best deck I have is kind of boring. I don't know. It's one that uses Collector. And if I just say that, I think a lot of people know exactly what cards I have. There's Devil Dinosaur.
Yeah.
There's Nick Fury and Agent Coulson and Agent 13, all those kind of cards that add cards to your hand. But I do very well with that deck.
Do you have the variant of it that includes Hela and has Dracula? So
not in that one. That one. I do have a deck that uses them, but not with my Collector deck.
Got it. Yeah. Let's see. For me, the one that I think I've won the most with is the Cerebro decks that basically all of the cards have the same power level. So they call it C2 or C3 is kind of the nickname of the deck. Mm-hmm. And essentially all the cards you play all have the same power. So that when you play Cerebro, it basically, he'll give +2. So you play Cerebro and Mystique. And so you double. So you'll give every card that you have on the deck like +4. It turns out like in aggregate to both fill up. You've got cards like Brood, Luke Cage, those types of things. Mm-hmm. And you have to get the order of things right because sometimes the locations will cause cards to have like a +5 this turn or +5 in this location. That screws up Cerebro because it only works with your highest cost cards. Right. So the deck plan only works when all the cards' power stays the same. And if you get something weird like that, it can kind of muck things up. So that's probably my highest win rate. The deck that I like playing with right now is from one of the more recent expansions, the Scar. Like the Planet Hulk stuff was really fun for me. So I have a Scar deck that has She-Hulk and a bunch of 10 costers in there where you're trying to use Zabu to drop the cost of the 4 and 5, 3 and 4 cost cards down. And you're trying to get a bunch of 10 costers out there so you can play Scar for free basically. And he's like play him as a 0/11, like on turn 6 or what have you. That's the deck that I'm playing a lot with right now. So it's a good question, Marauder Mo. Thank you for asking that. Then we got another one coming in from Alderin, who was shocked that you went to UIUC. Says, I thought you were a BYU guy. What's the weirdest court case that you've ever worked on?
Oh, so I'm both. First of all, I went to BYU undergrad.
Okay.
Electrical engineering, minor in math. And then I went to law school at University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. So
I see.
I'm both.
I see.
Weirdest court case? I'm a patent lawyer. So if you were to make a movie out of patent lawyers, like my day-to-day, it would be the most boring movie you've ever watched in your life. So So they're really interesting, but to describe it, like, I worked on a court case dealing with the e-field sensors in driver's side in the seats of cars that turn on and off the airbags.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting, but I can't explain it in a way that will be riveting for anyone. So
I've worked with a lot of patent lawyers in my job. If you get bored one of these days, you can search my name on the patent database and you'll see some fun stuff come up. All of it with my day job related stuff. But
okay.
yeah,
I'm going to look them up.
Yeah. There's several of them there.
My company that I work for, they do a Bring Your Child to Work Day every year, and it's really fun. They do a great job with all these events and things for kids. And then during COVID, they just couldn't do the big things. So it was just going to be their Bring Your Child to Work Day was just going to be the kids sitting there watching you work, and they'd have pizza or stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My kids were like, no way. Like watching me work, they're like, not a chance. Like, they know how, it's reading and writing. That's all I do all day. So sorry to disappoint some exciting court case. I just don't have one. Yeah.
Well, okay, everyone, that covers all the Rick facts that we've got. If you want to have more insights or ask questions and get your own Rick facts, drop us an email, megahaulin@gmail.com. You can drop a comment underneath this video or on the Star Realms fan created Facebook page under the post here. Just throw them in there. We'll collect them all and we'll make sure that we get to ask Rick on the next podcast. Rick, you posted a new update to a very valuable and important article on the Megahaulin strategy blog, megahaulin.com. You were able to go through and revisit the tier card lists and include support now for the High Alert Requisition and the High Alert Heroes. I'd love to get your take on that. And as you were going back through and looking at those cards, anything stick out? Any kind of key observations that we might want to hear from?
Yeah, I guess first of all, Requisition was hard to rank because their values can swing so much. If you have, let me just use an example here. I don't know. If you're paying full price or buying it for free, for example.
Right.
So I it was hard to judge. So, and I made comments about that in the comments, so if you have a blue deck, this is obviously a must buy, like the Lunar Landing, right? Lunar Landing is that cost 9 blue base that you draw and heal for every blue card you have in play.
Right.
That is obviously could be huge. And I've seen people draw, tons and tons of cards with that, draw their whole deck. It could just, the phrase I use in the comments is backbreaker. And then if you don't have any blue, it's just drawing you 1 card and healing you 1, which is not worth 9.
Yep.
That's a horrible value. So Requisition was hard to rate, but I did my best. Something else that I actually didn't realize, you pointed out, is that between Requisition and the High Alert Heroes, there's only 1 tier 1 card that I ranked. And I didn't even realize. Because I look at each card individually. I don't have a quota of I've got to have this many tier 1s in each set or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, and that was the Tanker Mech. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Tanker Mech.
Tier 1 in the early game.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I think it's interesting as a theme, but also the cost for most of these cards is a little high. I mean, the Hellfire, of course, and the Corsair are their own things, but I guess you've got cheap stuff here. You've got the Warrior Pod, but the Armory, the bigger cards are spendy. I mean, Lunar Landing's a 9-coster, right? And those are extremely rare in Star Realms. The Tanker Mech being here, the Tanker Mech's utility, the ability to scrap it and draw a card, or potentially get a scrap from your hand or discard, plus it's cheaper. I mean, you could see getting Tanker Mech, if you got a bunch of cheap red on the first deck, it just happened to be out there, you could see yourself getting the Tanker Mech for 1 or 2, maybe even free. That's the one thing that seems unlikely. It's a very rare occurrence that you'd be able to buy a card like that for free, but it's not impossible to believe that you'll luck out and not only you'll miss all of the scraps from that turn, but you will get the Tanker Mech for free, right? Yeah. if you redraw into deck 2 and you've got 5 reds in your hand, well, that's pretty cool. You're not getting any value out of those scraps, but you would be able to buy a card like this for 0. So
Yeah. And how often, even if you pay full price for it, like
mhm.
in the early game especially, how often is a game won or lost by who gets to Brain World or Arc first, right?
Yeah.
And so you can get maybe 5 out of this if you click for the draw, you know. So
Yeah.
it helps you win the race towards those bombs. So it's a pretty good card early. But yeah, so that was just something, there's not a lot of tier 1 stuff in this deck, a lot of tier 2.
Mm-hmm.
So there's good cards. We talked about the heroes a few casts ago. They're good, you know, but none of them are great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of cards like that, and I guess you should expect it. Some of it is mild seasoning for the sake of seasoning or for mixing it up. We're putting celery instead of onions this time, right? It's not radically changing the taste. I'm not a super taster, so for those of you who are listening who are, just please stick with the point. Don't beat me up because celery doesn't taste like onions. But the point being is that there's some delta here, exposure to a range of approaches that might better fit the theme of your deck. May not be the perfect fit or the exact card you're looking for, but it might fit into the family of adjacent tactics that you're trying to drive and build towards. So, that's fine. I mean, we're just adding a little bit more range there. I remember when we first reviewed the Requisition, we were really wondering how big a deal it was going to be able to get the cards cheaper if you somehow found your way into a heavy monocolor ally deck. And it's really one of these things that just seems to be undependable. In other words, if you know you're playing with Requisition cards, that's great. Well, they're in the trade deck. If there's one on the opening trade row, that's one thing. If it's something that shows up halfway through the game, well, you didn't build your deck around that. If you happen to be in one of these colors, you get the benefit of it. But then again, you also potentially open yourself up for unscrapping your deck in some cases by buying stuff, even if it's cheap or discounted, that's not really adding to your game. So, I think I can't say I have a ridiculous number of games on this set yet. So I'm going to wait until it comes out in the app and really get into it and try to digest it. I don't want to say a nothing burger because it's a mechanic that could be used in different sets in the future, but Requisition is really falling flat for me in terms of the impact I thought it might have based on me projecting the value of Magic the Gathering techniques and sets. When you get your price drops and things like that or you get tribal style decks, you have a certain pattern of gameplay that emerges from them. And I feel I was overly optimistic and projecting from my experience in other games onto Star Realms. And so far, it hasn't been borne out, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I kind of realized this as I was kind of reviewing these cards. For example, Lunar Landing, going back to that one. Of course, it's a great card if you can get it for less. Like getting it for less and getting it in a blue deck is the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like not one or the other. If you can get it for 5, it's because you have a blue deck. So you would buy that even if it was 9 for that deck.
That's right.
So it hasn't had the impact. I have seen, cases where like the Armory, it's an okay base. And there's been times when I just had one yellow card that dropped it down to 6 and I was able to grab it. So it makes a difference sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't been a massive, it's not a massive game changing set.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
We don't have a lot of data on this, but it would be interesting to know if the average savings triggered by the Requisition effect is probably 1 to 2. It's a floating value somewhere between 1 and 2. I think it's extreme to believe that you're going to get 4 or 5 off the cost of something. It can happen. If we were to try to imagine a distribution, those are definitely not going to be. That's not going to be in the middle of that curve, right? It's
Let
probably
me
going to
add
be somewhere between 1 and 2, and more like 1.1, 1.5.
and let me add a caveat to that. And this is why I don't use Requisition with commanders. But when you use them with commanders, you will see huge discounts for
Yeah.
certain cards. So like if you're using Requisition with a blue commander, you have a really good shot at that lunar landing, which can be especially for something like Nandy,
Hmm.
it could be huge. So
Hmm.
commanders, maybe it is a bigger deal. It can make a huger difference than regular Star Realms.
Yeah, that's fair. And dual faction too, right? It's like walking around with coupons that you hope will be worth something at some point in the game.
Yeah.
But you're intending to win the game the way that you've bought the deck, not hoping for a bomb to show up and to get it for cheap. Where I was going with that is, I wonder if there's value in trying to. We'll just spitball this. I'm not really worried about the actual numbers here, but let's say that these cards are too cheaper. Like let's say we get the higher end of the range, and that fairly consistently you should be able to buy or expect to buy these things for two costs cheaper. When you look at these cards, how does Lunar Landing for 7 change your rating of it from your perspective? And maybe what I'm asking here is it a whole tier better card because of that discount in price?
Honestly, I don't think so.
Yeah. This is what I thought you would say. And if we
It's an
go through and look
interesting
at the rest of these,
question.
like Swarm Colony, right? I mean, you get a free draw off it. It's got a 5 butt. If you buy Swarm Colony for 4, I mean,
That could
maybe.
be a tier 2, tier 1 late.
Yeah.
It wouldn't. I have it as a tier 3 mid. It might be a tier 2
Yeah.
mid if it's only costs 4.
We know Tanker Mech is already in the tier 1, so we can skip him, but he even gets even higher on that list if he's 3 cost,
Yeah.
right? How about Armory? Armory at 5.
Armory at 5, maybe tier 2.
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe it's
Maybe.
bottom of the tier 2 pack at 5.
Corsair at 1.
Yeah, that's a tier 1 maybe
Hmm.
early.
Right. Hellfire at
Cuz
2. Heck yeah, man.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How about
Yeah.
platform operations, right? 4 butt, which gives you 1 damage or 1 combat each turn for 1. I don't know if that's tier 1, but that's
It's not
a
tier
much more.
1. It's probably a tier 2. Yeah.
And then
Early.
Warrior Pod at 0.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. If you could get that free, would you take it?
I mean, if I'm already in green, which is how I would have gotten it for free, I would have had to play 2 pair. I'd have to play a couple of green
Right.
cards to get that, right? So I'm already in green. So
If
the
you're already in green, yeah.
chance of hitting the 7 damage from this card increases because of that already. So maybe. But what I love about this is the delay about a free card. You were like, I don't know if I want a free card.
Yeah, I mean that one. Yeah, it's same with the Corsair. Like I put it as tier 4 in the late game,
Right.
and looking at that card, if it was free in the late game, you should not take it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
You
it's
should
it's
not take
cutting
it.
in on the game closing or game winning cards that you
Yeah,
should be
it
playing.
will hurt you
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
late
for
game.
sure.
So
This whole angle of this conversation to come back and say that even in the optimal conditions where you are consistently getting 2 trade discount on these cards, only in a couple of cases does it materially change the ranking, at least as we have it structured inside of the
yeah,
Megahaulin tier list, right?
yeah,
So under the best, not the optimum, but the realistic conditions, the discount is not worth the chase from my perspective. The discount doesn't make these cards any more valuable to chase.
that is a really important point. And I don't think I had that in mind, but you should not chase any of these cards. In other words, you should not buy the color in, with the purpose of getting one of these cards cheaper. You should
Mm,
never do that. It's not worth it. It should
yeah,
just be a happy bonus if you
yeah,
happen to get the card cheaper. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. In the best cases, I feel like these games might shave half a deck off of a win. If you're already about to like steamroll these things will accelerate that. They're going to accelerate the deck that already is moving quickly to win.
The one exception to that is lunar landing, because if you have a heavy blue deck, unless you're scrapped down, you're going to lose eventually. If the blue kind of gives you the illusion of winning early on because you're healing and healing to your head, but the blue doesn't do a lot of damage. So you might lose with the heavy blue deck. You might be losing. Lunar landing can flip that. I've seen that happen with lunar landing. It's like a lightning in the bottle type thing, but that is the one card here that I can see that I think, and it's cost 9 or less if you have blue. But I've seen people completely flip a game with lunar landing, and so I don't remember what point you made that made me respond that way. Now, lunar landing is the game changing card potentially of the set that can flip a game. The rest are. Or you were talking about accelerating kind of the inevitable.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That's the only card I've seen that can flip the direction of a game in this
Interesting.
set.
Yeah.
And in a very specific situation.
Now, interestingly, is it the lunar landing that does that? Or is it the fact that you already had deep blue, which is likely drawing? Because this card hits its stride when you're playing a bunch of your blues, then gaining life and drawing a bunch of cards, right? It doesn't just perpetually keep reactivating for all the cards that you draw after you trigger this effect. You get the health for sure, but if you're deep in blue,
it turns non-drawing blues, which there's a lot of them, into drawing blues basically. So like Bounty Hunter, Cutter, which are cards that you would buy early, but then in the late game, Cutter can sometimes it slows you down.
Yeah.
But then like Port of Call, like some of the bases, it turns all those blue cards into drawing.
If you guys have not seen this article, this is the top item over on the Megahaulin blog. It's the Star Realms card tier list. It's a pretty popular post. It's been around for a long time. Originally was started by a different member in the community, but Rick has been its steward for quite some time now and taking great care. And additionally, generated an app that you're able to actually use, which you created the app. Now that I know that you had a science undergrad, I understand a lot more about you, Rick. It helps me understand. I'm like, where is this guy getting time to actually build out like apps? I mean, I know the Glide app is not like deep code cutting, but still, it's actually a really great experience. You have it on your phone and you can actually just quickly sort through and make your decisions based upon the same information that you would get out of the article. So definitely take a look at that.
Could I actually put out a call for help on this?
Oh yeah.
There is a limitation with this Glide app. It's really helpful. I use it. I was just using it. There's one big limitation on this, and one of the tabs is a format filter. So you can enter the specific letter for the different formats, and because there's so many cards, you can just enter like W, and it'll just give you all the Colony Wars cards and the ranking for each one. So it'll help you like look at one set at a time.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the limitation of Glide is it's basically when someone enters a letter, it puts it into my spreadsheet and then it filters it. So, and only one person can do that at a time. So, if I hit a W and then someone else 5 minutes later hits R for Frontiers, it's going to change the view for everyone.
Right.
So like before this cast started, I put in QO for Requisition Heroes, and it's already changed. So someone's using it. It changed to some other sets. And so if anyone has suggestions on a better way to do this, I've reached my kind of limit, peak of spreadsheets and apps. So
yeah,
if anyone has suggestions on a better way to do this so that that's not a problem, I'm open to. I don't know how many people are using this, so it's probably not an issue most of the time. There's only one person on here at a time. But if there were two people, they're going to be messing with each other and changing it, toggling it back and forth with what they want to see. So anyway, just throw it out there if anyone has suggestions. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you've got an idea of a better way to implement the app than the Glide experience, please drop us a line, megahaulin@gmail.com. We'll make sure that gets to Rick and you can provide some input and maybe we can tighten that up. Generally speaking, though, it is pretty helpful. You can use it on the web, but as Rick said, it's a common spreadsheet that everybody is searching through. It doesn't have filter views that are unique to the person.
Right.
And that's understandable. Like it's a free app if I understand correctly. So
it is.
in the meantime, go over and check that out on the blog and let us know what your feedback is. Do you agree with the ratings and the rankings? Do you agree with our assessment of Requisition? I'm going to be a little bit bold and say it's mostly, in the words of Douglas Adams, this would be a mostly harmless mechanic. Occasionally it's nice, but for the most part, it's just mostly irrelevant, to be honest. Or do you think we've got it wrong? Let us know and drop us a comment. Megahaulin, a Star Realms podcast over on Facebook. We're also in the fan created page. We're on the Star Realms Discord, and we're certainly easy to find at megahaulin@gmail by email. Rick, I did notice, just a quick comment. We did start to see some of the Rise of Empire heroes, which include the legend assessments for a bunch of folks starting to make their way out. I think we're going to wait to review them until there's a formal release. But there's some interesting powers being invested in some of these heroes, and I'm very keen to see how those are going to impact the game, especially if people break it out of Rise of Empire and start to deploy those into trade decks.
Yes, I agree. I'm interested to see what the economy of Rise of Empire looks like, because some of those heroes look pretty good for their cost.
Yeah. You put them into a standard game. I mean, you've got heroes that effectively can trigger reclamation station effects for very cheap, trigger all 4 of the trade factions. There's just some cool stuff. The art is also really great, and I think some of that stuff had been shared out earlier, so people had already seen their photos paintified and turned into card art, which I'm very happy for all the legends. It takes a long time for these things to come along, and when they finally do show up, it's really nice to know that you are immortalized in the game. One day, Rick.
Looking forward to seeing the releases of Rise of Empire. Very much looking forward to that game.
There was an update not that long ago that says that the proofs were coming back.
Yes.
And so it's been a while. Not an unrealistic period of time, but is there anything to this idea of it kind of perpetually taking longer and longer for these guys to get stuff out, considering what they used to do in their heyday?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was COVID in between those, and that's not an invalid. It did affect things. I don't know if it's still affecting things as far as supply chains and things like that. So I don't know. I'm not mad. Some people are, but I'm fine. So
I'm not mad. We got plenty of things to play still.
One thing you can count on is that the quality will be good.
Well, that's the key. And I think it would be very easy for them to shut everybody up, cut a corner, and then people are going to be upset for a different reason. So I do appreciate nothing that I've gotten from them has ever been disappointing on the quality of both the cards or the consideration.
Yeah.
It always is good. You just got to wait a minute. So maybe I mentioned to you before we came on that maybe we need to start up a sign-up sheet, and if we get them by Origins, somebody needs to be your Rise of Empire buddy, and you can just play all the way through the set during the weekend with one person, and that way you both are able to at least check it off that you were able to go through at least one campaign.
I think it's going to be fun, so we'll see.
Speaking of events, I know we've got competitive scores to talk about, but let's before we get too much further, the Gen Con season, the Origin season, etc., PAX and others are on the fly. Last weekend, I was in Orlando at the MegaCon convention. I didn't get to play too much in the way of games, but I'm curious, Rick, are you making plans to head down to Origins or Gen Con at all this year?
Not this year. It'll be the first time in, I guess, except for COVID, that 2020, I'm not going to make it to a convention. Just finances are tight. I bet. I got a kid going to college so I just got to take this year off. So
don't worry. That this all comes back to you later in life when when we're both old graybeards, that's when the kids come in to take care of it and change diapers.
I'm starting to count the years. I'm 7 years from the last kid finishing high school. So then I'm going to be at all of them.
Yeah.
It'll be Origins and Gen Con all in the same year. I've never been to PAX. Maybe I'll do one of those.
Yeah.
Any of the
Yeah.
PAX
PAX
ones?
is pretty good. PAX is
Yeah.
well run. It's a really good vibe. For my part, I will be at a lot of shows, but I haven't decided if I will go to Origins or Gen Con. I will be at San Diego Comic Con. I'll be at the New York Comic Con. And I think that I'm also potentially planning to go to the Chicago comic event, the C2E2 event. And
Oh,
so if I do that, maybe you and I can go to Wrigley and have a hot dog and watch a ball game. Maybe we'll find a
let's
way to
do
do
it.
that.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can go
So
watch all the players that the Cubs didn't sign this year play.
beat them up. Yeah,
Oh
well,
man,
the same with the Giants. The
they've
Giants did
done
not sign
nothing.
anybody. They lost the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, but if I was Shohei Ohtani, I wouldn't come here. Like, to show up to be one guy, you need a whole team. The Dodgers have that whole team. So
Yeah.
as much as I gave Corey Bear a lot of crap, I will delight if the Dodgers can't get a World Series with that team, but nevertheless, they are stacked. That's a scary team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's check out the results. What results we have since the last cast for competitive Star Realms. I've been seeing a lot of posts for new events that are spinning up again as well. So maybe we can also talk a little bit about how people can get involved if they become interested in competing.
Yeah, good idea. So there's only one result that I have, and that is the Star Realms Premier Circuit, one of the ones I run. Event number 2 of season 5 just finished yesterday, and Cebus Ripper won that one over Morfada. So congrats, Cebus Ripper. I think he's won other SRPC events over its history, but congrats on winning that one. Agent Seto was the number 1 ranked player going into Event 2, and he is the number one ranked player coming out of Event 2. So he holds
Oh,
on
wow.
to the number 1 ranking barely. He's
Oh,
9 points above Corey Bear, and this is out of 10,000 points.
wow.
So out of 10,000 points, 9-point difference
I love
between
it.
Agent Seto and Corey Bear. So we'll see. They're really close to each other. So that's the only result I have. I do know that there are some events that I don't participate in. There's a few new leagues or events that have popped up, and so I don't. I'm probably missing some events. So if you run an event and haven't I haven't been kind of recognizing the winners, shoot me a PM in Discord or on Facebook, and we'll talk about it. We'll highlight the winners. But you're gonna have to help me out on identifying those events. So, as far as how to get involved, there's a lot of fan run events going on and through the Facebook, through Board Game Geek, and through Discord. Some are unique to each of those platforms. Some are run across all of them. So there is a blog post on Megahaulin called Guide to Online Leagues. You can go there, and it's got a link for most of, not all, but most of the ongoing leagues, and a few that are on there that are inactive. But it has a link there that tells you what expansions you need, how to join the league. So all the main ones. The notable one that's missing on there is Dion Lunsford's leagues, the Commanders League, and his non-Commanders circuit. But he posts to the Star Realms Facebook community and to Discord all the time whenever he's starting up a new event for those leagues. So you can easily, if you're monitoring either of those, you can catch when he's starting a new one. And we'll try and get his league added to that blog post. If there's any other leagues and you're running and you want to add it to that blog post so that other people can find it, shoot me a description. You can look on that blog post, see what info we provide. Give me that info and I'll add it to the page. So, but that's a good resource to kind of all on one page find out where to go to join these leagues.
Very cool. Very cool. And those leagues are ready for some new folks. I mean, there's clearly a lot of folks on the Board Game Geek leagues, your leagues, the SRPC. There's a lot going on. So if you're interested in becoming more involved in the community and playing competitively, get involved. Follow Rick's advice. Check out Megahaulin, and of course, event coordinators. Let us know what you're doing. We love highlighting the success and being able to toot the horns of the people who are the winners. So definitely get in touch with us and let us know. I think that probably about wraps it up for us this time, Rick. I think we definitely got some good coverage here. Thank you again for putting together that tier list. I've told you before, I use that tier list, especially if I've been rusty on a set or something like that. And so it's always good to go back and be able to say, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll blame Rick. But thank you for doing that. And again, for everything that we've got, check out our strategy blog, megahaulin.com. You can reach us by email, megahaulin@gmail.com. And of course, as Rick said, we're in the Discord as well as the fan-created Facebook page. We're easy to find. So if you've got Rick facts that you want to get or questions that you have for us, ideas or thoughts about the cast, please share them. We're interested in hearing them all. And reach out to us and let us know. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Until next time, Scouts pay full price. So long, everybody.
It's worth it. Bye.